First, I want to get to our first guest, Fred Parrish. He is the co-author of the book. It's the E-Myth for the Chief Financial Officer. It is an honor to have you on the show today because we were talking before the show, and I've read the first E-Myth, the E-Myth Revisited, the second run of this thing, and I'm glad to have you here.
Thanks, Brian. It's good to be here.
All right, let's give us a little bit about your background. You come from the CFO kind of accounting background.
Yeah, I have an accounting finance background, but I've spent probably half my career in operations, and so I have a bit of a different perspective on how finance should be applied in a company. A lot of times when someone has been in a finance role for their entire career, a lot of times you end up with the tail wagging the dog, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take a view that is really toward helping the company achieve the objectives, and that's really, in my mind, what a CFO should do. They should be a strategic animal. They should be able to answer any question about what is happening in that company and support that CEO in any way they need to be supported. They should be able to take that strategic plan, quantify it, and show that CEO where there might be some issues coming somewhere down the road that need to be managed or even avoided.
Mm-hmm. And so the CFO role has really changed since it was 30 years ago.
Absolutely. It used to be more a financial animal.
Mm-hmm.
Today, again, they have to know everything there is to know about IT and personnel and operations and marketing and all of the internet-related items that could touch on technology or even marketing. So they need to be well-versed in all of those.
The subtitle here is Why Most Small Businesses Run Out of Money and What to Do About It. That's interesting.
Yeah. That's really where I have focused the last 20 years of my life and really have lived a lot of very ugly situations personally, more than I care to remember.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's our mission now to help as many companies as possible to avoid that ugliness that is a cash shortfall. Could
you find that a lot of companies, they have the product, they have the service, they have the leadership in a way, they have the marketing, they have the drive, they actually present a great product to the consumer, but they're not the best people at managing their money?
Well, that's right. And the reason being is that the vast majority of small business owners either know how to sell something or make something to be sold, whether it's a product or service is irrelevant. Very, very few have any kind of financial management background,
mm-hmm.
and they just loathe the idea of having to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the book, we make it really easy for them to get their arms around that functionality
mm-hmm.
and really to understand what a CFO should look like, what kind of background they should have, what kind of training, and then the ability to apply all of that in support of the business. But I think the main point is that most small companies are not large enough to have a CFO.
Yeah.
And so by default, that owner, manager, maybe we call them the CEO,
mm-hmm.
they are by default the CFO. So they need to know what that means.
Yeah, they do. Fred Parrish is our guest, co-author on the E-Myth, Financial Officer, Why Most Businesses Run Out of Money and What to Do About It. And you've described a little bit of your past. You've come from the financial, economic, accounting background. How easy or difficult was it to write a book?
Well, actually, it was not. It just took time. It was not terribly difficult, given what I have done for the last 40 years. It really is just an idea of organizing
mm-hmm.
the thoughts, and we have developed a strategy in our company that really facilitates the implementation of all of those principles in the book. And so translating that business model to the book really was not terribly difficult. Again, it just took some time to do it. And Michael Gerber's E-Myth structure made it easy to address those specific functions and areas of the business.
Yeah. Let's take a break here in a few minutes, and we'll get into kind of the the E-Myth before, the first one. And I read it, and I gave you some background on me that it really, I would say it changed the course of the company that I was building and the way I ran it. And it was huge an influence in my life. And I can only imagine that a book like this can really benefit that business owner, that CFO, and it gives them a clear guideline of who they should be in an emerging market where you're taking on so many different responsibilities.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
I mean, as things change, I mean, a company can grow within a year well beyond their expectations, and then they're left like, oh my goodness, how do I manage the money? What? Yes, very confusing. So glad you're here. We'll take a break here. Also, the Dow jumps up at 119 points, but still suffers the worst week. All right, welcome back. In the studio with me is Fred Parrish. We are talking about the new book, The E-Myth, Chief Financial Officer, Why Most Businesses Run Out of Money and What to Do About It. We were discussing in the break the likelihood that a business won't make it. And unfortunately, I was sharing here my story that I was in the restaurant business, and which is one of the most challenging, I think, industries that there are, right? And if you can go, 3 to 5 years, your chances of survival goes up tremendously.
Exactly.
In our case, we knew we wanted to go 6 to 7 to sell, to get optimum value in our company. We know that we could then get a couple of years off the ground, get it going, maximize it in year 6 and 7, and then get a purchase price for it. But let's go over the stats of the likelihood that businesses will fail.
Right. Well, the U.S. Department of Commerce says that after 5 years, only 50% of those companies will survive, the ones that had started 5 years prior. After 10 years, it's only 30%.
Well. And so it almost makes you think, like, why aren't they failing? I mean, why aren't they succeeding after year 3?
Well, as we were talking on the break, a lot of business owners don't have that CFO, that higher level financial person to rely on. And, maybe for a while things are going pretty well. And, frankly, if you're not doing the right strategic planning and the right follow-up and the right cycles on how you look at things, most of the time that's just pure luck.
Yeah.
And so what happens is, and in my experience, I have seen too many businesses go out of business just because the owners could not see what was coming. Mm-hmm. And by the time they ran up on a problem, it was too late to do anything about it. So it's the idea of putting a process in place that allows you to see clarity about what those future outcomes are going to look like before you actually get there. And so the idea in the book is to put systems in place and a process to manage those systems, to capture the information that you need, to process that information, and then to report and evaluate that information on regular cycles so that you always know at any point in time where you're going and what those outcomes look like. And obviously profits are important, but cash flow is key, right? If you're out of cash, you're out of business. How many times have we heard that? But small businesses, most of the time, those owner managers, again, let's call them CEOs, maybe a technician. I'll give you an example. We worked with a plumbing company up in the Northeast. And when we first started working with them, we have analyzed their financials, and we found that they were going to be out of business in 6 to 8 months. They had a dramatically negative cash flow, and they were going to negative $100,000, and they were done. It was never coming back. And so got to talking with the owner. He was a plumber. His wife was doing the bookkeeping. And they told me, we know we have a problem because we can feel the pain. We know that we can't pay our vendors on time. We know that we have a problem with the IRS. We know that we have a problem with the state. We're not paying our sales tax on time. And we've got a big debt load, but we have a profit on our P&L. Okay, well, what's your profit? Well, it was $35,000 a year. So let's round that off to $3,000 a month. When we got in and looked at it, they had a debt service, a credit cards, loans, payments to the governments that they were dealing with on their taxes or $13,000 a month. They couldn't connect those dots. So he was a plumber, but he couldn't recognize where the leak was in his business. And most small business owners fall into that category. They know about their business and they understand generally what is going on around them. But if they are not doing the right level of analysis, reporting, and looking and evaluating, they're going to miss something.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're going to run up on a problem. And we just happened to come across this company at the right time.
Fred Parrish is our guest, co-author of the E-Myth, Chief Financial Officer. The company is the Profits Experts.
Yes, that's right.
Let's talk about that.
Sure.
What the service you guys offer.
Yeah, well, the Profit Experts, again, we focus on providing small companies. We usually work with companies that have 100 or fewer employees.
Okay.
And we provide basically outsourced CFO services. Now, there are a lot of people who do that on a consulting basis, but that's not really how we approach it. We have software applications that allow us to do that work and provide just a tremendous amount of information to small businesses. We have a virtual CFO service that we can provide for literally a few $100s a month. So a small business can hire a CFO instead of $200,000 a year. They can hire for $300 or $400 a month, flat fee.
Flat fee.
And we also have an application, the Profit Beacon, that is now an automated CFO, where a business owner can go online, register, set up their company, load data from QuickBooks, and answer a couple of questions about how the company's operating and get a 2-year P&L, 2-year weekly cash flow forecast. I've done it as fast as 8 minutes.
Wow. And we talked in the break about what are some of the most common mistakes that CFO makes. And let's kind of recap that real quickly.
Right. Well, again, in my experience, the CFO needs to be very strategic. They need to understand the operating dynamics of the company. And when you have a CFO that is more compliance-oriented, accounting, debits and credits, and tax returns, audits, those kinds of risk management, insurance, those kinds of things, that really is that's in support of the operation, but it really doesn't help move the operations to the next level. And so if they're not well-versed or experienced in getting involved in those operational issues, sometimes you have the tail wagging the dog.
There you go. Let's talk about some of the feedback you've gotten from people, and there's a couple quotes on the back of this. A great book on the Chief Financial Officer's role in managing resources, growth, change, and getting results. I highly recommend it. It comes from Dr. Daniel Talmall. You've got people on here from retired J.P. Morgan Chase people, all kinds of people. But what's, in your personal experience, what's been some of the takeaways?
In the book? Well, I think that it is written for non-technical people. It is a financial book to help people understand certain financial concepts and how to apply those to the operations in the company to improve the performance. Again, it's important that we generate profits, but the ultimate objective is cash flow. And in my mind, and in the way we approach business, is if we don't have cash flow, profits are irrelevant.
Let me throw out a company for you. We talk about this company a lot on the show. Tesla.
Sure.
Not a whole lot of cash flow, a lot of debt,
right.
a lot of bills. We got a guy that comes on this show every Wednesday, and he always says, I just don't see how this company, we love the product, but we hate it as a financial. He'd rather put money in Ukrainian junk bonds than invest in Tesla because he just doesn't see the reward back there. It isn't. But I mean, how does a company like that keep going if there's no cash flow?
Well, right, and that is a finite life. There is no way that can continue. Elon Musk has been able to raise a lot of money, but someday that's going to dry up because people are going to stop throwing money at a company that is not profitable. So, they're making some adjustments in their operations and they're trying to get to profitability, but you can only do that so long.
Yeah.
You have to have profits to generate cash, and you have to have cash to generate profits. And you can't break that cycle.
Yeah. All right, we'll take a break. Fred Parrish is our guest, and we'll give people an opportunity when we come back to get a hold of this book. It's a very simple way you can do that. You'll even get it signed. How about that? Good stuff on a Friday. Give us a few minutes. We'll come right back. You listen to 620 AM KEXB, your experts in business. All right, welcome back. Fred Parrish is our guest in the studio. The book is called The E-Myth, Chief Financial Officer. We were kind of talking in the break about my experiences, and he can add to this as well. When it comes to like growing your business and increasing your market share and having to hire more people and having to, ramp up inventory or maybe expand a location and just do all the things that are associated with growing a business. Sometimes people just don't want to do that.
Well, that's right.
And why do you think that is?
Well, there are some people who are comfortable where they are. They're lifestyle businesses and they're making a good income. They want to take their vacations. And I know of a company in Canada, actually, that the two owners are brothers. And between the two of them, I suspect they probably see each other maybe 3 months out of the year.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the time, one's on vacation while the other one is in the office. They'll be gone for a month at a time. It's pretty amazing. It's a great business. They're great people, but it's just that's the way they want to operate.
Yeah, and I've kind of found that like on sometimes restaurants and things like that, quite honestly, more business means more headaches to a lot of people.
That's true.
And it's in the service industry. And if you sell widgets, they can always want to sell more widgets because they are tooled to sell more widgets. But in the service industry, more service means more people, more problems, more inventory, more space, more everything. And sometimes they just don't want to do that.
That's exactly right. It's just more headaches.
And I guess as you get older, maybe you just don't. You're just like, I'm done. And when I was in the frozen custard business, I was in my late 20s, early 30s, I think. And so I had nothing but time. So I did that. And I learned a lot. Like I said, I picked up the E-Myth Revisited book, and it changed my life. So let's talk about how people can get their hands on this book here. And
right.
It's because it's not official. Is it not officially released yet?
Not yet. It'll be out next week.
Oh, wow.
And so if anyone wants the book, I'm asking them to email me directly. I'll get Michael to sign it. I'll sign it, and we'll get the book to them.
Yeah.
So my email address is fparrish, Parrish, at profit-experts.com.
There you go. And let's talk about the Profit Experts right now. And if someone wants to, are you guys based out of any particular North Texas? I mean,
well, we're in North Texas,
okay.
But we service clients all over the country, and actually, again, in Canada. So we're a virtual company, so we can support anyone from anywhere and do it very efficiently.
Does a CFO role change that much in a great economy like we're in now versus a economy that like 2008, 2007, 2009? I mean, we're comfortable when business is good, right?
Right.
Is the stress level lower rather than we've got to really trim?
Actually, in my experience, when a company is growing, doing really well, and just going like crazy, that is the most dangerous time in a company's life because it is very easy to outstrip your resources if you're not careful. If you're not paying attention, you can outrun your cash. You can outrun whatever those resources are, people resources, equipment resources, whatever it takes. Good example, we were working with a pretty large, actually, construction company in Oklahoma. They were about $100 million in revenue, had 500 people, and they were growing at about 100% a year. And they were at a point where they actually needed to hire a CFO. A year later, they're gone because they had outstripped their cash ability to build the company. And it is a very, very precarious situation. So it's really good. The economy is booming and things look great, but you need to be very careful. You need to pay attention. And again, that's why the principles in the book. I mean, how you manage people, how you manage those operational components, how you manage your accounts receivable, how you do your strategic planning. It's all very, very important.
Yeah, the accounts receivable, that's a big deal.
It's a big deal. And unfortunately, most of the time, people don't pay any attention to their accounts receivable until there's a problem.
Until everyone's 120 days late.
Exactly. And that is one of the main things you do not want to do. Most people wait until the account gets to a certain age, let's say 60 days, 90 days, before they start to collect it. And if you do that, you guarantee that you will always have accounts that are 60 and 90 days because you just wait till they get there before you do anything. So you need to start early. You need to make sure that when you invoice someone, you give them all the information they need. You put all the detail on the invoice you can. You give them all the supporting documents so that there are no questions.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is agreed up front. If you have a contract, make sure everyone signs off on the contract. But then once you issue the invoice, if you don't get your payment, if they're notoriously late, maybe you call them on day 25 if their terms are 30 and say, hey, can we expect that check next week? And if they don't pay you next week, maybe you call them again and say, we're past the terms here. Do you think we can get that payment? And sometimes you just have to fire customers because if they're not going to pay you, if you have to chase them, then maybe it's not worth the headache to get the revenue.
I'm with you. I'm totally with you. And some people, I coming from like the ad agency at one point in my life, we had clients. We literally just said we can't do this every month.
Right. That's exactly right.
We can't float your media buy in hopes that you pay us. So we make that little skim 20%. That by the time we all the manpower and man hours, no.
Well, and that's exactly right. It's just not worth the effort to continue doing business with.
Yeah. And if you get a whole stack of those guys going 120, now your cash flow really.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, let's say we sell something for $5,000. This is an example in the book.
Okay.
And it costs us $4,000 to make that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if we collect that $5,000, we make a 20% profit on that. That's a pretty good profit.
Mm-hmm.
But if we generate that $5,000 invoice and they never pay it, it would have been better to never do that because now we're not out the $1,000. We're out the $4,000 of costs that it took us to produce that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it would have been better just to not expend the effort and put the materials in to start with. Yeah. And, those kinds of things in a large accounts receivable, it doesn't take very many of those kinds of situations because most companies' profit margins are not 20%. They're down less than 10. A lot are less than 5.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to be very, very careful what you do.
Yeah. And I think, here's maybe something you may see this on Instagram and social media. People buying flashy things, flashy cars, flashy planes, all the stuff that goes along with this quick rise to profit and to success. When the CFO needs to step in and go, wait a minute.
That's right.
We don't need a 12 passenger Cessna or anything like that.
That's exactly right. And I'll tell you, Brian, I can't tell you how many times I've seen that. And in every single case, somewhere down the road, they regret that and they wish they had that money back.
Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say the guy's name. There's a guy here in Dallas, and he's a personality, and he has I won't tell you much more than that because you'll probably guess him. But he had went out and bought a Rolls.
Oh, wow.
Maybe 5-6 years ago. That Rolls lasted about a week until the CFO said, you're going to take that Rolls back. Like, you don't need to buy that right now. And it literally went back.
Right.
And I think.
Yeah, good for him.
I mean, that's.
Well, and good for the CEO to take it back.
To say,
most of them wouldn't.
Absolutely. Wouldn't have said something to him about his ego or anything like that. But you got to watch that money. All right. Well, I'm going to give people one last chance before we tell you goodbye. The E-Myth, is there a website or anything like that? People get more information on the
go
experts?
to theprofitbeacon.com.
Okay.
And there's information on there about all of our software and services. And again, the best way right now for the book is to email me directly, and we'll handle that personally and get a signed copy of that book for you.
I think it's great. I'll tell right now, if you haven't read the E-Myth, go read that. And I said before the show, I'm not a big reader, but this thing was really easy to read.
Really easy to read. And that's the way this book has been written, too. Even though it talks about financial subjects, it has been written in a way where it is non-technical, very easy read, And in fact, we had someone help me strip out all of that. Being an accounting type, I have to put those things in.
Yeah, you want to put those things in there.
Right.
And of course, if you're just starting out, this is a great book for you.
Absolutely.
If you're a new business and you say, hey, I need to know what the role is of a CFO, like what's my primary role, or how can I be a CFO and be a CEO and a marketing director and be successful at all three?
Absolutely.
Or I've been a CFO for 30 years, but how can I adapt to the changing, emerging markets?
That's exactly right. And if there is a bookkeeper or an accountant in a small company that wants to contribute more, be something bigger and better for that company, it's a great book to learn what that means.
There you go. All right, before I let you go, what you doing for the weekend? Anything staying around town or?
Hopefully we're going to get together with my granddaughters.
There you go.
Yeah, we haven't seen them in a couple of weeks, and they're just an absolute joy.
Yeah, there you go. Summer's here, so
Absolutely.
I'm sure they're out of school.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. That's right.
Well, we certainly appreciate you coming on. Great book, The E-Myth, Chief Financial Officer. Once again, the website for the profit experts.
Yes, go to theprofitbeacon.com.
Okay.
And there's information about the profit experts there also. But I appreciate you having me, Brian.
No,
it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. I like I said, I'm thrilled to even be with you guys. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back. A multinational positive